I mean, I thought it was kind of interesting because like David, some of the abstractions you seek to provide with Kubeflow are they have this value of simplifying some of like the best practice patterns. It's kind of just like a simplification for the data scientist who's used, or whoever, an ML engineer who is getting started and they don't want to handle, they may not want to build their own system on they may not want to bring their own component for many of these things. They may want like, I just want the default kind of ML pipeline. And then, I have my one custom thing. That's kind of like some of the stuff that we saw building on Michelangelo. And I think as you were saying that, it was reminding me quite a bit of a lot of the value that we seek to provide with the feature store concept, because the feature store, you could see it as like one component that could live within a Kubeflow framework, right? A broader MLOps framework. But what is it doing is it's providing this abstraction to the underlying data infrastructure that there's a whole bunch of different data architecture patterns that can be implemented, like blueprints, so to speak, that can be implemented for, depending on what your use case is. If you're doing like a real-time fraud prediction kind of thing, or you're doing an offline batch thing, or you got to send data for labeling, and so the feature store, we're trying to allow that to use that to simplify some of the decision making that a user would have to do when they're trying to build their MLOps pipeline. And then I see what you guys are doing is kind of like a level above that, which is use the feature store, or whatever you want to use for your data side, and then similar systems for model management and the other components of the MLOps stack. And so it seems like there's like the same kind of patterns being employed to bring the best of breed, but you can swap out components that you want, and you're really like orchestrating kind of like best practice components.
Yeah. No, it's such an interesting point, and let me stress that actually, for those that don't know, the feature store, in my opinion, is probably one of the most overlooked components when it comes to building a production ready pipeline. Like the ability to describe schema, to do your engineering in a well-defined step, to do validation, and to provide first-class interfaces for those later steps to consume data is absolutely critical. It breaks my heart that we didn't have a feature store on day 0 with Kubeflow, because the number one problem in ML is data, right? It's not training, right? Like all the hard part, all the work goes into engineering and understanding and sharing those features and things like that. And Feast obviously is running away with all those components there. And I'll say, like I said, I think I would love to figure out how we kind of standardize as an industry and say, hey, you know what? These are the contracts around a feature store that are so critical, inputs and outputs for a feature store for providing all those steps. And then inside that, we can have active competition, but like every one of them should have, adopt quote unquote that standard. I think that would greatly accelerate a lot of things.
Willem, I see you shaking your head. Yes to that
one.
No,
I was in agreement with that. I think we've had these discussions publicly and internally a lot, moving towards publicly defined contracts, and just nailing those contracts down, whether it's data contracts or API contracts or schemas, is critical. And when you have boundaries of those for all the components in the ecosystem, not just the feature store, then you can actually start swapping things in and out, and you don't have to have a KFDEF deployment for each cloud provider and each environment, right? You can have you don't have to build a component and custom implementation every time. So that's the only scalable approach to kind of a universal platform, like an opinionated machine learning infrastructure that works in multiple contexts.